In the early years of the 5th century BC, the Persian Empire under the reign of Darius I was already expanding towards the continental Europe and had subjugated Thrace and Macedonia. The next objective was to quell the conglomerate of potentially problematic rebellious Greek states on the western border of the empire. In the year 490 BC, Greek forces led by Athens faced the Persians in the Battle of Marathon and heroically defeated the invaders. Despite being a heroic feat by the Greeks, the battle also marked the beginning of a long war with several other fierce and bloody battles. But perhaps the one that marked the turning point and tipped the balance was the Battle of Salamis. This invasion of Greece by the Persians was motivated by the spirit of expansion and by punishment. Cyrus laid the foundations of the Achaemenid Empire, also called the First Persian Empire, when it successfully defeated the small empires of Babylon, Lydia, and Media. Cyrus the Great extended his empire to the Indus Valley in South Asia and to the Balkans in the west. Additionally, the great king was known for his generosity, his respect for the well-being of his subjects, and his respect for their beliefs. The system of his empire was directed by a centralized bureaucracy, and governors of each colony, known as satraps, were installed to effectively govern the vast empire. However, after his death, his successors were not as powerful as he was, but they still demonstrated their valor and strength. Darius I was the third king of the Persian Empire and ruled from 522 BC until his death in 486 BC. Darius ascended to the throne when the empire was at its peak. In fact, the empire under his dominion covered almost 3 continents, as it included much of the Balkans such as Thrace, Paeonia, and Macedonia, Western Asia, coastal regions of the Black Sea, northeastern Africa including Egypt, Libya, and Sudan, and even parts of South Asia up to the Indus Valley. But the notable expedition in King Darius's life was to punish Athens and Eretria, which aided the Ionian Revolt, a rebellion of several Greek city-states against the rule of the Persian Empire. The revolt lasted 6 years and triggered Darius's purpose of subjugating not only the rebellious city-states, but all of Greece. Darius saw that his dominion needed to be fully established, and the Ionian Revolt could have been fatal for him if it had succeeded. That is why he swore to punish those involved, even those who were not part of his empire. The first expedition under the command of Mardonius took place in 492 BC and was a complete success, as it quickly conquered Thrace and Macedonia. Additionally, Darius also sent messages to other city-states in the form of an ultimatum, demanding land and water as a symbol of submission. In 491 BC, most of the Greek city-states accepted Persian rule and submitted, but Athens and Sparta outright rejected these threats. The Spartans threw the ambassadors into a deep well, while the Athenians executed them. This naturally angered Darius, who sent Persian forces under the command of Artaphernes and Datis to punish Athens and Sparta. The forces attacked the island of Naxos and, in turn, received the submission of other states in the Cyclades Islands. In addition, the Persians also attacked the state of Eretria, eventually reaching the Bay of Marathon to face the Athenians. This battle resulted in a heroic Athenian victory. Having suffered a decisive defeat at the hands of the Athenians in the Battle of Marathon, King Darius planned to completely subjugate the Greeks and began forming a large army. His preparation for war lasted for 3 years, and this time he wanted to lead the army himself in person. However, his preparations for Greece were halted when the Egyptians rebelled against his rule. Darius then focused more on Egypt to quell the rebellion and postponed the idea of attacking Greece for later. But during that effort, Darius's health deteriorated, and he eventually died. His son Xerxes ascended to the throne, and shortly after taking it, he crushed the Egyptian revolt and immediately began preparations for the invasion of Greece. Since the offensive was going to be a large-scale invasion, the preparation took longer than expected. Xerxes had to come up with long-term planning, gather a large army, and train them in combat. In addition to this, he also had to build a bridge over the Hellespont and dig canals through the Isthmus of Mount Athos, all to facilitate his army's access to Europe. His preparations were completed in early 480 BC, and it was in that same year that he marched with his army towards Greece, crossing the Hellespont bridges. For their part, the Athenians knew that the Persians would soon attack again and therefore, under the command of Athenian politician and general Themistocles, decided to go to war. Themistocles convinced the Athenians that, given Athens could not face such a superior army as the Persians, they should build a consistent naval fleet to confront them. He also proposed a Greek alliance to fight against the forces of Xerxes, as no Greek state could face the immense power of the Persians alone. Xerxes also sent ambassadors to all Greek states except Sparta and Athens to demand submission. The Greeks held a pan-Hellenic congress and formed an alliance. This alliance was a true achievement in the history of the disjointed Greeks, since some of the Greek polis were at war with each other at the time of the alliance. But they set aside their enmity and raised their swords together against the foreign enemy. Shortly thereafter, the Battle of Artemisium took place, which, despite not having a clear winner, forced the Greeks to regroup in the Strait of Salamis. Meanwhile, the Persians had just defeated the Spartans at Thermopylae and were advancing towards the cities of Plataea and Tegea, which were destroyed by the barbarians when they refused to surrender. Xerxes had gathered many ships from Egypt, Phoenicia, and many other domains. According to the stories of Herodotus, the Persian fleet was made up of 1,207 warships, while the Greek fleet had only 380 ships. The Greek fleet was commanded by the Spartan Eurybiades, along with Adamantus of Corinth and Themistocles of Athens, both considered great strategic geniuses. After the fall of Athens, the population and Greek warriors were evacuated to the island of Salamis. The Spartans were defeated at the Battle of Thermopylae, where King Leonidas fell heroically. After this, all of Attica was also abandoned, and the stationed fleet retreated to Salamis. The barbarians at this point sacked Athens and burned its temples along with the few civilians who took refuge in them. This savage act was avenged centuries later by Alexander the Great when, blinded by drunkenness, he burned Persepolis. However, unlike the barbarians, the Greek king quickly regretted his actions and wept when he realized what he had done. In view of these actions, a council of 17 commanders from each of the allied Greek states met to decide on a course of action. Most of the members decided to withdraw to the Isthmus of Corinth and fight from there, but Themistocles, who was a brilliant naval commander with 20 years of experience, convinced the members to take position in the Strait of Salamis. The reasons were that the Persian navy was good at fighting in open waters and, furthermore, the large number of their fleet could easily surround the Greeks from the flanks. So, the battle in open sea was something to avoid for the Greeks, and the Strait of Salamis was a very narrow place that would completely neutralize the Persians' numerical superiority. The idea was to turn the enormous Persian force into their weakness, and the plan was successful. Themistocles also misled King Xerxes with information claiming that he was on the Persian side and had no interest in the Greek cause. To top it off, he also let him know that there were serious disagreements between the Athenians and Spartans, and that the latter were going to evacuate at night. King Xerxes acted quickly and sent a fleet to patrol and block the strait. But what he did not know was that it was a bait for him, and that what Themistocles wanted was to lure him into the Strait of Salamis. After the unsuccessful search patrol for the Spartans, the Persians decided to attack the Greek fleet in the narrow Strait of Salamis in the morning. The battle began on the morning of September 20th, 480 BC. The Greeks were quickly trapped by the Persians, as they were not only inferior in number, but also the Persians had large and fast ships with experienced sailors. However, both sides put their last bet on this naval battle. For Xerxes, victory would mean the surrender of all Greeks, and for the Greeks, it was a matter of life or death. The Greek ships, being fewer in number, had more space to maneuver and flank the Persians. When the Persian ships advanced, the Greeks were cornered more and more, forcing the Persians to confine themselves more in the waters. Their ships lined up and had little space to disengage. Then the Greeks charged against them and rammed their ships against those of the Persians with fury, causing them to try to retreat. But due to the large number of Persian ships and the narrow space, a plug was created, and the escape route was blocked. colliding with each other and causing panic among the barbarian ranks. Then the sea turned into a wooden battlefield and hand-to-hand combat ensued. The Persians, amidst the chaos of battle, lost connection with their superior commanders. Furthermore, the Persian forces were a mishmash of different ethnicities who didn't even speak the same language amongst themselves. In fact, they had difficulty communicating and many soldiers didn't understand their own commanders. On the other hand, the Greeks spoke the same language, were of the same people, and, most importantly, fought for their lives. When the first line of Persian ships was broken, the second line followed suit in a domino effect. The Greeks also ended the life of Ariamenes, who was the leader of the enemy fleet, and the brother of King Xerxes. In view of the events, the Persian fleet was completely demoralized, as they now found themselves leaderless, and the second attack by the Greeks was the mortal blow. The battle continued for hours, and by late afternoon, the Greek victory was finally achieved, an epic and crushing victory resulting from ingenuity, tactics, and heroism. After the Battle of Salamis, the remaining Persian fleet fled towards Asia Minor, being pursued and massacred by the Greek fleet. 1 year later, the Battle of Plataea occurred, where the Greek alliance completely defeated the invading forces, putting an end to the Persian invasion of Greece. If you liked this video, don't forget to like and share it, it helps us a lot. See you in the next video.